What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog. We are getting ready to play one of our last sessions here at Texas Card House in Dallas, and that is because our road trip is finally coming to a close. We're heading back to Florida next month, but before we get in there tonight, I want to go over a little recap of the last 6 months. So on September 29th, 2021, I moved out of my apartment in Miami and I went to the World Series of Poker in Vegas to start my road trip. I ran hot, winning over $15,000 in a little over 2 weeks. I then made my way to Dallas, Texas in October, where I spent 6 weeks playing at Texas Card House, and unfortunately, I had one of the worst runs of my entire life, losing $13,000. After Dallas, I made my way down to San Antonio, Texas, hosting a meetup game at Rounders Card Club, then up to Austin, Texas to play on more live streams at TCH and The Lodge. Unfortunately, things were not going my way. This was an extremely low point for me. I was losing a lot. I was making wrong decisions. I was almost on a $20,000 downswing. I was missing home and I almost just called off my trip and went home early, but I decided to proceed on. In December, I went out to Las Vegas again for the holidays, where things finally started to turn around, winning almost every session for 2 weeks straight. In January, I drove out to Los Angeles to host a meetup game at Hustler Casino, and I also played some high-stakes games at Commerce and the Bike. After LA, I went back to Vegas for 2 weeks and continued to run well, but I was really starting to miss home and I was getting a little burnt out from the Vegas lifestyle, so I drove back to Austin, Texas, spent 10 days playing at the Lodge with Brad, Owen, Andrew Nemi, and Doug Polk. It was a great week there, winning over $7,000. In February, I came back to Dallas, where I've been the last 6 weeks, and I've been on the biggest upswing of my entire life. At one point, I was up almost $40,000 in the month of February. It is now March, and I've been on the road for over 6 months playing poker and making poker videos. I've had a great time. It's been the highest of the highs, winning tons of money, having great months, and the lowest of the lows. It's been super stressful at times, been losing money sometimes, and it was really tough to take, but it was a great experience overall. However, I am super excited to get back to Florida. I miss my friends, I miss the Hard Rock, I miss the weather, I miss the beaches. It's gonna be a lot of fun to go back there, but let's get ready for our last session here at Texas Card House. Let's hope to run good. Let's get down to the table. Let's get to the action. Let's go. We start off our session at 8:25 p.m. We're playing 5, 10, 25. There's a limp under the gun. I have 5, 4 of hearts in middle position and ISO raised to $100. He makes the call, so we're heads up in position to a board of King 6, 4, 1 heart. We flop bottom pair, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. He checks. I bet $125 and he makes the call. Turn Queen of Clubs. He could have a flush draw that I can still get value from, but I think it's pretty thin to continue to bet here on the turn. So when he checks, I decide to check this one back, and the river card pairs the board. It's another 6. He thinks for a while and decides now to lead out for $300. Immediately, I felt like he was bluffing with the timing of the bet and the sizing of the bet. I don't think he's going to be betting this big with a queen. He could possibly have a 6 here on the river. I don't think he's betting King 10 or King Jack, and he'll most likely just raise those hands pre-flop. So we beat all of his bluffs like flush draws, backdoor straight draws, and open-ended straight draws that missed. However, he could possibly be turning a pocket pair into a bluff like pocket 8s or pocket 7s. I've seen players in Texas do that before, so we could hero call here and lose to a better pocket pair that he thought he was bluffing with. However, with all that being said, I feel like against this player, he's got a lot of bluffs, so I make the call. He shows ace 3 of spades for a busted flush draw, and our 4 is going to be good, taking down our first pot here on a Saturday night at Texas Card House. Next up, I pick up my first big pocket pair of the night, pocket kings from early position. I make it $75. I get a call from the next to act player, who is definitely on the tighter conservative style. He is definitely not a crazy loose action player like some guys here in Texas. We go heads up, out of position to a queen high board. I continue for $100 and he makes the call. Turn 9 of clubs, interesting card. This can improve him to a flush, 2 pair, or a straight. However, we still have an overpair. We have a gut shot straight draw and a king high flush draw, so I decide to keep betting here. I bet $325. My opponent does not think for too long and makes the call. Interesting spot here. We got a pretty big pot brewing here with pocket kings, and on the river we see another king. It's the King of Hearts. We make top set. However, it's now a one-liner straight to any jack. What an interesting spot here. Top set on the river with a one-liner straight and a flush. We're beating all of his 2 pairs or set combinations, but we're losing to a straight and a flush. So I decided to go with a bet fold route here, meaning that I'm going to lead out on the river, and if he raises me, I could probably just let my set go. I bet 525, and immediately his body language looks like he's contemplating a call or a fold, which is great for us, which means we should have the best hand, and ultimately he decides on a fold, so we take this one down with pocket kings. Next, we peel back pocket queens, another premium. I make it $75, and everybody folds. In this next one, there's a player who posted his blind in later position, so I raise to $100 with ace-king from under the gun +2. I make it $25 more than my original raising size because there's some more dead money in the pot. Small blind calls, and now the big blind decides he wants to play for more. He bumps it up here to $450. Straddler folds and the action is back over on me. I have a little more than $5,000 in my stack, and the big blind covers me, so we could be playing a massive pot here. A little information on the big blind player: he is a rock. I hardly ever see him get out of line or make any big mistakes. I would say he's probably one of the best players at the table, so now I have to decide, should I call or should I put in the 4-bet? I decide to call for a couple reasons. One, I open from early-ish position and he knows my range is pretty tight, so if he's 3-betting me here out of position, he should have a pretty strong hand. Another thing is that the small blind player is not a professional player, and he made the call, and I know that the big blind is going to want to play a lot of pots with the small blind player, so when he 3-bets here out of the big blind, basically trying to incentivize the small blind to get out of the pot, I know he's going to have a very strong hand. He's probably going to flat with a lot of his range so that he can play in position against a weaker player in the small blind. So long story short, the big blind's a tight player. He knows that I'm a tight player. He's re-raising me, which means he's probably going to have a really strong hand of jacks, queens, kings, aces, and ace-king, and against that range, I feel like a call is fine in position, so that is what I do. We're heads up in position to a jack 8-9 board, and he decides to check. By him checking here, it doesn't mean he's always going to have a weak hand. He realizes that this board is going to smash my calling range way more than it's going to smash his 3-betting range. I can have all the sets, 2 pairs, and straights, and he really can only have pocket jacks here. A lot of the time, he's just going to have ace high or 1 pair. So when he checks here, I decide to start a bluff. I can either get him off a chop if he has ace-king, or I can continue to put more pressure on down the road and maybe get him to fold hands like aces, kings, or queens when the board gets really scary. I bet 4 black chips, and the big blind decides to make the call, so now we can rule out hands like ace-king and ace-queen from his range, which means he's most likely going to have flush draws here and those overpairs like aces, kings, and queens. So I'm looking to continue to put on some pressure on the turn, but we see the jack of spades, which is actually kind of a bad card. It's less likely now that I'm going to have a jack or pocket jacks when this card hits, and if I bet here, it's going to be pretty polarized to a very, very strong hand. The big blind checks, and I decide to check this one back. The river is the queen of clubs, one of the most interesting cards in the deck. It's now 1 liner to any 10 for a straight, and the front door flush gets there, and the big blind checks over to me. We are stuck here with ace high and a pretty big 3-bet pot. Now I have to decide whether I want to bluff here or check this one back. The reasons for bluffing is that I don't think ace high is ever going to be good at showdown here, and the reasons for giving up and checking back is that my hand wouldn't make too much sense if I bet here on the river. I would be representing hands like pocket 10s and a flush. I don't have any blockers to any flushes, meaning I don't have the ace of clubs in my hand or the king of clubs in my hand. It's also possible that my opponent could have pocket 10s for a straight, or maybe even pocket queens or a slow played flush. So I decide to chicken out and check, and he shows pocket aces, and yeah, we're not going to be winning this one. Being results oriented, I think if I put a river bet out here, he maybe would have folded, but we never know. It's a little bit unfortunate to get a cooler ace-king versus aces, but in this one, I think we lost a minimum. Stuck a couple hundred in this next hand. Cutoff makes it 75. Small blind 3-bets to $300, and we have the big slick again in the big blind, and I feel like this is a great spot to go for the cold 4-bet. With a game playing 3 blinds, the small blind player is going to be re-raising a ton of the time with all of his playable hands, which means he can have a ton of hands here that he will fold to a 4-bet, and hands that we're crushing like ace-queen, king queen suited, king jack suited. So I decide to bump it up. Cold 4-bet coming in, $750. Cutoff gets out of the way, and now the small blind eyes up my stack. You can see on the right hand side of the screen, the small blind has 6.5k just in big chips, and then a bunch of other chips behind that. So if he jams all in here for my entire stack, I'm going to be sick to my stomach, but I'll probably have to make the call. However, it doesn't come to that. He ends up just flat calling, so we're going heads up in position in a 4-bet pot. 5, 6, 7, 2 clubs. What the fuck is that board? Definitely not what we were looking to see. Small blind checks over to me. I feel like he's going to have a really strong range here, calling my 4-bet out of position of basically only jacks, queens, and kings. So I decide to check this one back, knowing he's just never folding to any bet, and I'll just be lighting money on fire. Jack of clubs on the turn, now giving us the nut flush draw. However, it could improve him to a set if he has a hand like pocket jacks. Small blind checks, and same thing as the flop. He's never going to be folding to any bet, so I check back. The river is a 10. He checks again. I check. He shows ace king. I show ace king, and we chop. A little anticlimactic there, chopping this pot up. I'm not sure if I should be c-betting that flop or not. I feel like I should because I have the ace of clubs, but really, I have no idea. We chop this one up and move on to the next one. Same player from last hand is in the hijack, makes it $75. I'm in the cutoff with king jack of diamonds. Bump it up to $225. He makes the call. We see a jack high board. I bet $300 and we win. After a few hours of playing, I have concluded that this table is tough. Really no weak players and a ton of strong players, which means it's going to be pretty tough for me. I could switch to an easier 2-5 game. However, I'm trying to push myself and play bigger stakes, so we are here to battle. Back to the poker hands and back to another premium. Pocket kings again in the hijack. I raise to 75 and the button with about $7,000 in a stack. 3-bets me to 250. Folds back around to me and a 4-bet is incoming. I go into the tank trying to think of what sizing I want to go, and I decide to go $775, and it seems that the button was bluffing. He very quickly folds. Next hand, the game has been bumped. 5, 10, 25, $50 straddle. I'm in the big blind with the kings again. Third time this session. There's a limp for $50. The button makes it $225. He covers me with about $10,000 in a stack. And again, a re-raise is incoming. I make it $800. With a $50 straddle on, this game is now 10 times bigger than the normal game I play here. So yeah, it's a pretty big game. My heart rate is definitely elevated. The adrenaline is pumping. The action's back on the button, who decides to fold. Kind of tilting that I picked up pocket kings back to back and really didn't even get to see a flop. However, it's a lot better to win a small pot than to lose a big one. Stuck about $500, folding for about an hour. I look down at ace king on the button this time, make it $75. Big blind 3-bets me to $300. I would say that he is one of the tighter players, if not the tightest player at the table. So given that information, I decided to just make the flat call. I think it's fine to have some stronger hands in my flat call range. On the button, we see a board heads up in position of 4 deuce deuce, 2 spades. Big blind bets $300. I'm ahead of all of his bluffs pre-flop like ace queen, ace jack, king queen, king jack, but I am drawing pretty thin against his pocket pairs. I think I can fold sometimes or call sometimes, and this time I decide to make the call, and we see the 4 of clubs on the turn, now double pairing the board. Big blind continues to put the pressure on. He makes it $675, and these are the spots that I just hate in poker. I should have the best hand here a lot of the time. It's a double pair board. Button versus big blind, the range should be fairly wide. He's saying he's got these big overpairs like jacks, queens, kings, and aces. However, he can still have some bluffing hands like weaker ace highs, maybe king high flush draws, queen high flush draws. So I decided to get sticky here and make the call with thoughts of potentially bluffing if the river card's a club, given the fact that I have the ace of clubs in my hand. The 5th card doesn't improve us, however, it is the queen of clubs. So now if my opponent checks, I feel like I could shove here, trying to represent the ace high flush draw. I can have all the ace jacks, ace tens, ace king of clubs, and obviously he can't. But my opponent continues for a huge sizing of $1,500. What was going through my head right now is I freaking suck at poker. I should go back to playing 2-5. I just torched $1,000 and I fold. This hand got me pretty tilted. I am not happy with the way I played it. I'm down over $2,000 now, so I add on for 1,500 bucks. All right, shake it off, take a breath, let's get it back. I have 9-10 of hearts now in the small blind. Button opens up to 75. I 3-bet to $300. Big blind folds, straddler folds, button folds. We take this one down. It's now 3 a.m. and we decide to officially bump up the game 25, 25, 50. This game is huge. Next hand, I'm in the straddle with King 5 of diamonds. The cutoff makes it $125. Given this price, I feel like I have to complete and make the call, which is what I do. We see a 9-8-3 board with 1 diamond. I check and he checks this one back. The turn is a 3 of diamonds, giving me now a king high flush draw. I check again and he makes it $100. Sitting here with a king high flush draw when the bottom card pairs, I think this could be a great spot for a check raise bluff, maybe to $300 or $400. However, in real time, I guess I decided a call was good, which is what I do. And we see the 10 of spades on the river. We completely miss. I check and he checks back and he wins with ace high. I wish I could have had the balls to check raise on that turn. It definitely would have worked against ace high. I don't really like the way I played that hand, which seems like a trend on this session. Next up, I have ace 9 of clubs. I raise to $150, get 1 caller. We flop a pair and a flush draw. I bet, he calls. Turn I bet again, and he folds, so we take down a small pot here. I'm down about $2,000 on this session, which I know is nothing for this stake level, but I'm pretty annoyed with the way I've been playing. I don't think I'm playing my best, and I'm also not running the greatest either. I'm picking up a lot of big hands and not getting too much action, or I feel like I'm misplaying some pots and losing the maximum, but that is about to change when we pick up pocket aces in the hijack. I make it $200, cutoff calls $200, small blind calls $200, big blind folds. Under the gun straddler decides not to call, not to fold, but put in another raise. He bumps it up to $1,000. Sweet baby Texas Jesus. What an amazing spot to be in, holding pocket aces, facing a $1,000 raise. We're playing 25, 25, 50. I only have $5,000 in my stack, which is only 100 big blinds. So I feel like if I raise here to like $2,500, that's actually going to look stronger than if I just shove. There's a ton of dead money in this pot. I have the best hand you can ever get pre-flop, so it's all going in.
All in? Oh, shit. Ooh. If he calls, I might. God. You guys fucking up. Really? Damn, I want to see the flop, Billy. Please.
Just like that, we are almost back to even, winning over a $1,400 pot there with pocket aces. I'm about to rack up my chips and just book a small loss, but then I get dealt in for the 4th time of the night, pocket kings. Under the gun limps for $50. Button makes it $225. I make it $800 in the big blind. The under the gun player is the only recreational player left in the game. He stuck about $5,000 and just 1 orbit to go. He tried to bluff $2,000 on the river, so I feel like he's a little tilted, trying to get his money back. He makes the call for $800 and the button makes to fold, so we're heads up, out of position. A great spot to be in with pocket kings until we see an ace high board. According to the poker gods, an ace comes on the flop almost every single time you have pocket kings, and especially when you're out of position playing a huge game. Of course, not the best board we're looking to see, but doesn't mean we're always going to be behind. I decided to go with a range bet here of $500, which is basically what I'm going to be doing with 100% of the hands that I'm going to get here with. Under the gun makes the call for $500. This pot is getting huge. We see the queen of hearts on the turn, now bringing 3 hearts on the board. There's also an overcard to my pair, so I slow down and check. Apparently, under the gun does not want to check. He wants to bet, and he wants to bet big, $1,300. Now, against a lot of players at this table, I would just pitch my pocket kings, but like I said before, this guy is stuck money. He's a pretty loose action player. It doesn't mean he's always going to have me beat when he bets here. I want to see what he's going to do on the river. I feel like he could possibly be bluffing to try to take the pot away, so I make the call. This pot is getting massive, $5,500 in the middle, going to the final card, which is a brick. I check, and he quickly checks back. We could be good here. I show pocket kings, and he shows ace, queen, for top 2 pair, and kings are cracked. Very frustrating spot to be in. I was down money all night and finally got back to even with pocket aces just to lose $2,500. The very next hand with pocket kings, we got outflopped by our opponent and lost a lot. I want to just call it a night, but the dealer deals me in one more time and we get pocket kings again. I don't even want to play him this time. I make it $150. Everybody folds and I'm out. Tilt. Tilt, tilt, tilt. Rough night. Rough night. Not even sure exactly how much I lost. Hey! What's up? Yeah, what's up? Good boy. So I do realize that for this stake level, this loss is basically nothing. For a 10-25 game, 25-50 game, this amount of money lost is nothing. However, when I'm taking shots at bigger games, I'm hoping that at least the variance will be in my favor. And I felt like tonight, in all the big pots, the variance was just not in my favor. I got ace-king a ton of times, missed every time. Ace-king versus aces, and I think I lost a minimum. And that hand kind of punted with ace-king calling on the turn. So pretty tilty night, couldn't get too much going. The game was big, a lot of money on the table. I was down like $1,500 or $2,000 just grinding away, grinding, and finally picked up pocket aces, raised to $200, got 3-bet to $1,000, jammed all in, took down like $1,500. I was about to leave. I think I was almost even on the session, and then pocket kings, raised to $800. One of the recreational players at the table who was down like 5 or 6 grand ends up making the call with ace queen, and he hits an ace on the flop. You could argue just folding there on the turn, but against that player, I wanted to see what he would do on the river. So ran kind of bad today. It didn't really hold up in any of the big spots. Couldn't get too much going. The table was really tough. To be honest, probably one of the tougher tables that I've played at here in Texas. A lot of solid players. Nobody really getting out of line, and I understand that this is probably not the best table I should be playing at. I should just play 2-5 where it's nice and easy, but I'm trying to push myself. I'm trying to play bigger stakes, and when I go through an upswing, I want to take shots at these bigger games. So I understand I'm going to be playing against better players, and the table is going to be tougher, and it's going to be harder to win, but if I can get used to playing at that game, when I go back down to 2-5, it's going to feel like a piece of cake. So that is why I push myself to play some of these bigger games. I know I'm one of the worst players at the table, and tonight I definitely felt outclassed, and I felt like they were better than me. They had more money than me. They had more experience than me, but there's only really one way to get better in poker, and that is to push yourself and try to play higher stakes. So that's what I'm doing. Unfortunately, tonight really didn't go my way. Tilt is kind of starting to subside a little bit now that I'm talking to the camera. This is why I love this vlog, because it just like helps me relieve all of this anger or stress or whatever. I can just talk it out to the camera, and all you guys will see. But hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was our last vlog in Texas for probably 2 or 3 months. When our next vlog comes out, we will be in the hot, humid, sweaty South Florida air. I cannot wait. I'm super excited to go back home to Florida. Hope you guys enjoyed this crazy long road trip, and until next time, I'll see ya.